While in elementary school, my mother frequently took my brother Ken and me to our favorite park. It was very large, with several sections. It seemed nearly endless to me. Ball fields, playgrounds, and hiking trails through dense wooded areas. She always parked in this same lot, one of many, near some swings and slides and a small hill. We weren't allowed to go up to the ball fields as older kids playing in tournaments with large crowds seemed to always be present. Of course, that made Ken and me really want to go there. However, we normally stayed in or near the playground area, playing with our Hot Wheels and toy army men, as we were told. One night, while unable to sleep and deep in concentration about the park, I seemed to leap out of bed. My trajectory was up and out. Suddenly, I found myself floating above our backyard. I felt like I was standing on ice. My feet could not make a purchase, as there was maybe 15 feet of air between them and the ground. My feet slipped and I started to slide in a horizontal direction. I fought to balance my body so I would not fall to the ground below. Suddenly I was slipping through the air as though I was on an invisible skateboard, arms out at my side and knees slightly bent, riding air like a wave. After a moment or two of circling my house from above, I really got into it and decided to see where else I could go. I followed the path that my mom had followed to the park as remembered. It was difficult at first because I had to stay nearer the ground to keep track of the road. I was still more than 30 feet up, traveling above the trees. On seeing the park, I decided to increase elevation to soar over the tall trees at the entrance. Next, I located, then hovered over our playground for a moment, took my bearings, and then headed to the ball field. It was dusk, just enough light to see all the details of the park. No one in the park at all. There was a long chain link fence at the edge of the ball fields and neighborhood street running alongside it. I slipped down closer to the fence and saw an unlatched gate. Just across the street there was a small corner grocery. Flying to it, I pressed my face against the glass with my hands shielding my eyes so I could see through. They had a lot of candy next to the cash register in the front door. Big Hunk and Bit of Honey, my favorite candy bars, were there. Not having any money in my pajamas, I didn't think to attempt to purchase a candy bar. I also didn't land because I was afraid that I might not be able to fly again once I did. So I turned to further explore the park, back across the street. Up and over the fence, I picked up speed and found it difficult to find my way back to the playground. I had to drop back down to about 10 feet off the ground so I could fly through the familiar paths winding through the trees. On arrival, I flew around the playground a couple of times and saw my brother's lost G.I. Joe buried upside down in the sand pit. Still afraid to land, I decided to find my way back home, intending to return for the doll later. Staying quite high up on the return trip, I followed what seemed to be a faint glowing light emanating from my house. How nice, I thought. There it is. The flying was incredible, just like a surfer riding a world-class wave. I cut and turned here and there, gracefully negotiating the air. When I reached my house, I went into a steep dive, still flying on my feet, and passed through the roof like a cloud, landing on my bed softly. Crawling under the covers exhausted, I fell fast asleep. At breakfast, I said nothing about the experience of the previous night, but urged my mother to take us to the park again. I did whisper to Ken that I thought I knew where he lost his G.I. Joe at the park. He joined in the request, and my mother eventually relented, telling us that we could go right after she finished a load of laundry. We piled into my mom's green '56 Chevy Nomad with a picnic basket and blankets. A short time later, we pulled into the parking lot near the playground. As Ken and I spilled out of the car, my mom reminded us to stay in sight and not go over the hill toward the ball fields. Ken beat me to the sand pit and started digging around in an attempt to locate his doll. I remember a foot sticking up slightly on the other end of the pit and ran over to pull it out. Ken was happy to see the G.I. Joe and asked how I knew that it was there. I tried to explain, but it seemed too far-fetched to describe, so I just told him that I had a strong feeling. We ran over to show our mom that we had found Ken's doll. She had sat down at a picnic table with another mom and was not nearly as interested in the event as we were. Seeing that she would be busy for some time with the other mom, I asked Ken to come with me to the top of the hill above the playground. We were technically still in sight, but not for long. Showing Ken that I had brought a dime with me, I told him that I wanted some candy. He asked how we could get candy in a park. "Let's go," I said. "I'll show you." We ran at full speed to and then across the ball fields and toward the fence, all the while avoiding large puddles in the grass. No game was underway. It was an open field. When we reached the gate and the fence, Ken was reticent to cross the street, as we had already violated Mom's edict by coming to the ball field. So he stayed on that side of the street just to be safe. In all fairness, he seemed to always catch a whipping no matter how minor the offense, while I could talk my way out of just about anything with my mom. Walking up to the counter of the small store, I heard a voice from across the room. An elderly Asian man shouted to me, "Come back with some money this time?" I looked puzzled, and he went on to say, "You gazed through the window yesterday with some disappointment." I asked, "Yesterday?" "Last evening I saw you drooling at the candy through the window, but you didn't come in. You must have come back with some money today." I picked up the big huntin' bit of honey and set a dime on the counter, then ran out without saying anything more. As I passed the door, I heard the cash register chime, and he called out to me saying, "You have 2 cents change." I did not stop. Running across the street to Ken, I asked him to pick which one he wanted. He knew that big hunk was my favorite, and he said he wanted the bit of honey. We ripped them open and took a big bite each, stuffed it into our front pockets, and took to running back to the playground before our mom noticed that we were gone. She hadn't. Still engrossed in parent talk with the other mom, she hardly noticed us running up. Ken and I hid the candy bars until we got home, then hid them again so we could enjoy them without getting in trouble. I flew to and from the park and around my neighborhood on several more occasions after this event. However, once my family moved out of the Bay Area and to Seattle, I stopped flying. I noticed that people's faces would flush with fear when I told them of these events. So I stopped telling the stories altogether. Recently, I've become aware of out-of-body experiences, or OBEs. In considering this event, it seemed that OBE is the most likely explanation for my anomalous knowing. It could also be clairvoyance, but that does not seem to account for the skateboard flying, nor the recognition by the store clerk. Okay, so that's my flying invisible skateboard story. More to come.